Kiddos, it's Mrs. McDaniel. We are going to start your Saving the Animal Shelter project. This is for weeks 5 and 6. So the first skill that we are going to look at in this project is rounding. We know that we have a rounding song, so feel free to go ahead and sing that when you are doing these problems. We are going to look at our horses. Horses need 447 scoops of feed, so we are going to round this number to the nearest hundred. So when you're rounding to the nearest hundred, you want to find your hundreds place. You're going to find your place and look next door. 5 or more, you raise that score. 4 or less, you let it rest. We're looking at a 4 or less, so we're going to go back to our hundreds digit and we are going to let it rest as a 4. Look to the right, put zeros in sight. So 447 rounded to the nearest hundred rounds to 400. Now, horses need 598 gallons of water, so we're going to round this number. Once again, rounding to the nearest hundred, start in your hundreds place, find your place, look next door, 5 or more. We are looking at a 5 or more, so we go back to our hundreds digit and we raise that score. Look to the right, put zeros in sight. So 598 rounded to the nearest hundred is 600. Now, there are some numbers on here that are in the hundreds. If they're not in the hundreds, we have a couple that are just in the tens, so we will round that to the nearest 10. So, for example, we have, I believe it is rabbits. Rabbits need 62 scoops of feed for the week, and they need 75 gallons of water for the week. So now we're going to round these numbers to the nearest 10. So you're going to start in your tens place, you're going to find your place, look next door, 5 or more, raise that score. 4 or less, our number is 4 or less, so we're going to go back to the tens place and let it rest. Look to the right, put 0 in sight. So 62 would round to 60. Then for the 75 gallons of water, we're going to round to the nearest 10. So we start in the tens place, find your place, look next door, 5 or more. We're looking at a 5, so we're going to go back to the tens place and raise that score. Look to the right, put 0 in sight. So 75 gallons would round up to 80 gallons. So kiddos, I hope you have fun rounding. Hey kiddos, it's Mrs. McDaniel. The next part of your Saving the Animal Shelter project is creating and interpreting a bar graph. So on the first page you have a table that tells you the different kind of animals and how many animals got adopted. So what we want to do is you need to answer questions 1 through 5 based on that table, and then you're going to use that table to create your bar graph. We know that a bar graph must have a title, so you're going to write the title of your graph up here. Then you need to make sure you have your labels, one along the side and one at the bottom. So you need to think, what do these numbers represent? And what are all of these down at the bottom? So let's start with our title. Let's think. A title of a graph needs to be similar to a title of a book. It tells us what our graph is about. This graph is about animals being adopted. So we could write animals adopted. Now these numbers, what does that represent? That is the number of animals that were adopted this month. So we would write number of animals adopted. And then across the bottom we have horses, goats, sheep, dogs. Those are all different kinds of animals. So we gave our graph a title, We wrote our labels. Now we need to color and shade one block for each animal that was adopted. Let's do the first one together. The first one is horses, and if we look at our table, 22 horses were adopted this month. So we would go to our horses column and we would shade the whole way up to the number 22, and you will do this nice and neat. And you will shade the whole way up to the number 22 for horses to create the horse bar. Then you would move on to the next animal, which is goats. And you would look at the table and you would see that there were 16 goats that were adopted. So you would go to goats and shade all the way up to the number 16, and that would be your bar for goats. All right, kiddos, have fun making a bar graph. Kiddos, it's Mrs. McDaniel. The next part of your Saving the Animal Shelter project is working on problems that deal with time and calculating elapsed time. Our first problem says, you start feeding at 7 o'clock a.m. and it takes 15 minutes. What time are you done feeding the horses? And we want to remember our timeline strategy. So if we read it again, it says you start feeding at 7 o'clock. So our start time is 7 o'clock a.m., so in the morning. And it takes us 15 minutes. What time are you done feeding the horses? So we're not sure what our end time is yet. That's what we're trying to figure out. But we know that we can jump 5-minute intervals at a time. So if it's 7 o'clock, 5 minutes later, it would be 7:05. Do another 5-minute interval jump. It would be 7:10. Now we went 5 and 5. 5 plus 5 is 10 minutes, but it took us 15 minutes to feed. So you want to draw another 5-minute interval jump. 7:10. 5 minutes later, it would be 7:15 a.m. So we are done feeding the horses at 7:15 a.m. Have fun with your problems with elapsed time. Hey kiddos, it's Mrs. McDaniel. Your last job is to help customers count their money and pick out the perfect gift for their pet. So our first problem is about Samantha, and Samantha wants to buy a hamster wheel for her hamster. The hamster wheel costs $4.77, and Samantha's money that she has is a $5 bill. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, how much money does Samantha have? We know that Samantha has $5. A $5 bill is worth $5. The next question you want to ask yourself is, does she have enough money to buy the hamster wheel? Well, the hamster wheel costs $4.77 and she has $5, so yes, she does have enough money to buy the hamster wheel. The last question that you want to try to solve is, how much change will she get back? We know that we are buying something, so we need to use subtraction. Our hamster wheel costs $4.77. So we set up our subtraction problem. Now remember, we need to start 0 minus 7. You want to circle your bigger number. Bigger number is on the bottom. So we have big bottom regroup. We go over to the next place. It's a 0. We cannot regroup from a 0. So we need to come the whole way over here, cross out the 5. It becomes a 4. Then we come to this place, and this 0 becomes 10. But that didn't help us solve 0 minus 7 yet, so we actually have to regroup again. So that 10 will become a 9, and this 0 will become a 10. So we have 10 minus 7 is 3. Then we have 9 minus 7, bigger numbers on top. So 9 minus 7 is 2. Decimal point comes straight down. And then we have 4 minus 4, which would give us 0, and the dollar sign comes straight down. So Samantha would get 23 cents back from buying her hamster wheel. Now, you might want to challenge yourself and think, did I do my subtraction correctly? Let's make sure. And we know that we can check our subtraction with addition. So we will take $4.77 plus our answer, which was 23 cents. So now we need to think about addition. 7 plus 3 is 10. We need to regroup. 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 2 more is 10, so we need to regroup again. Decimal point comes straight down. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 0 is still 5. Dollar sign comes right back down, so you know that you did your subtraction correctly. Please make sure you prove that you did your subtraction correctly with addition. And now the last question is, what coins could Samantha receive as her change? So we need to think about the coins that we could use to make 23 cents. Well, we like to start with our quarter, but a quarter is worth 25 cents, so we can't use a quarter this time. Go down to the next greatest value coin, which is a dime. So we know that a dime is worth 10 cents. So we would have 10. Another dime would be 20. And then could we use a nickel? No, a nickel is worth 5 cents. That would be too much. So we need to go to the next coin, which would be a penny. So here we have 10, 20, 21, 22, and 23. So this is a possibility of the coins that Samantha could receive as her change. Have fun counting money and making change.